Ferrari's biggest mistake of the season may have just been exposed, and it involves Lewis Hamilton's car. After a shocking Q2 exit in Brazil, engineers found something inside Hamilton's SF25 that changes everything. This wasn't a setup issue. This was a structural flaw that compromised performance and blindsided the team. So what exactly did Ferrari discover in Hamilton's car, and why could this scandal mark a turning point in their 2025 campaign? Something went horribly wrong in Brazil, not just for Ferrari, but for Lewis Hamilton himself. A driver with decades of experience and a record unmatched by nearly anyone else on the grid was knocked out of Q2, not because of a miscalculated lap or a driver error, but because of what Ferrari engineers later uncovered inside the SF25. At first, fans thought it was just tire temperature issues. But internal telemetry told a different story. The problem was structural. And it wasn't small. It compromised Hamilton's entire qualifying session and exposed a hidden weakness in Ferrari's preparation strategy. After the session, engineers began cross-referencing data from Leclerc's car and Hamilton's. What they found shocked the team. Hamilton's rear-end stability was being affected by a flaw in how the suspension interacted with the tires over uneven curbs, a mechanical deviation that had gone undetected during setup, but became fatal under pressure. The SF25, already on the edge in terms of balance, became unmanageable. It wasn't that Hamilton lost performance, it was that the car never gave him the platform to compete in the first place. And what makes this revelation even more damning is what Hamilton himself said after getting out of the car. He didn't blame the track. He didn't even point to the tires. He said it plainly: we couldn't get the car in the right window. It's something that happened before the lap even began. That was the clue. It wasn't about execution. It was about engineering. And now, as pressure builds around Fred Vasseur and his technical team, there's one undeniable truth: Hamilton was never in control of this qualifying session, because Ferrari gave him a car that betrayed him from the start. This wasn't just a bad Saturday. This was a warning shot. If Ferrari cannot guarantee Hamilton a reliable platform in a sprint weekend, how can they possibly think about winning championships in 2026? The world saw the headlines: Q2 elimination. What they didn't see was the internal breakdown that caused it and what Ferrari quietly admitted hours later. The headline said, Lewis Hamilton out in Q2. But the truth behind that early elimination was far more complex and far more embarrassing for Ferrari. This was not just another bad Saturday. It was a technical failure rooted in one of Ferrari's oldest Achilles heels: preparation under pressure. While the team assumed the issue was tire warm-up, what they uncovered post-qualifying was far more serious. A rear suspension anomaly, specifically, a flawed response under lateral load, was disrupting the SF25's balance on high-speed entries. And it went undetected until it was too late. The problem wasn't just physical. It was procedural. Brazil is a sprint weekend. Only one practice session. Limited time. High demand on components. No room for error. But Ferrari's simulation tools misjudged the required setup window, especially for Hamilton, who has a radically different driving style compared to Leclerc. Where Charles can tolerate a more front-limited car, Lewis needs rear-end predictability to attack corners. And in Q2, that's precisely what he lacked. Telemetry exposed the mismatch. Brake pressure variation. Rear slip spikes. Unstable yaw rates into medium-speed corners. The car was rotating too aggressively under load but then snapping mid-corner, causing Lewis to hesitate and reset his steering angle lap after lap. On paper, it looked like a confidence issue. In reality, it was a platform failure. The car didn't give him confidence because it wasn't consistent. Not on entry. Not on throttle. And certainly not when the lap demanded commitment. Even more damaging was the fact that Hamilton sensed it from the start. From his outlap, he was already lifting earlier and making sharper steering corrections, a clear sign of a driver trying to protect the car, not push it. His feedback to the engineers was precise. Not enough bite at the rear. Low traction on exits. A car that wouldn't rotate the same twice in a row. These aren't excuses, they're symptoms of a larger breakdown inside Ferrari's operational execution. Hamilton didn't underperform. He adapted. He adjusted. But the car never allowed him to express the performance that was clearly inside him. And that's the real scandal. Not that a 7-time champion missed Q3, but that it happened because of a flaw Ferrari should have caught. Because this isn't 2022 anymore. This is a team that promised Hamilton the tools to build something special. But in Brazil, they gave him a car that couldn't even finish the lap at full confidence. Ferrari's SF25 is no ordinary car. Designed around a high-efficiency, low-drag concept, it features an ultra-tight rear packaging and a stiff rear suspension layout, a gamble aimed at maximizing straight-line speed without sacrificing corner stability. On paper, it works. On high-grip tracks like Suzuka or Silverstone, it's blisteringly fast. But in Sao Paulo, with its cooler temperatures and bumpier surface, that same concept collapsed under pressure. What Hamilton experienced wasn't a setup error. It was the downside of Ferrari's design philosophy. The stiff rear, while giving better aerodynamic stability in theory, offered no forgiveness when tire temps weren't perfect. That stiffness, combined with a marginal ride height setup, made the rear axle too nervous on direction changes. Every time Hamilton turned into a corner, the car's rear would load inconsistently, sometimes snapping into rotation, other times dragging mid-corner. A car on the edge of grip, every lap. The engineers back at Maranello later confirmed it. The behavior came from micro-instabilities in the rear suspension's torsional flex. These aren't failures you can detect with the naked eye. These are high-frequency oscillations, tiny shifts in suspension behavior that throw off load distribution just enough to confuse both driver and telemetry. It wasn't dramatic. It was subtle. But in F1, that's all it takes. Hamilton's driving was the only reason this wasn't worse. He adapted in real time. Mid-lap, he was already changing brake balance, adjusting throttle modulation, correcting steering angles. At one point, engineers noticed he gained back nearly 0.15 seconds just through corner entry corrections. That's not setup. That's talent. That's the reflexes of a champion making up for a machine that betrayed him. But talent has limits. The car's balance was asymmetric. While the left-hand corners felt manageable, the right-handers, especially turn 4 and turn 8, exposed the instability. When the rear load distribution shifted, Hamilton couldn't trust the rotation. That meant he had to lift earlier, delay throttle, and ultimately lose time where it mattered most on exits. And that's the real engineering failure. A car built to be competitive across all circuits ended up only working in narrow conditions. Brazil proved it. When you give a world champion like Hamilton a compromised platform, no amount of skill can rewrite physics. The SF-25 didn't break. It didn't fail visibly. But it failed where it mattered most in the precision Ferrari promised, but couldn't deliver. The immediate consequence of Ferrari's failure in Brazil is clear. Hamilton starts the Grand Prix from 13th on the grid. But the real damage goes beyond grid position. This is now the second consecutive sprint weekend where Ferrari's technical team failed to give Hamilton a car that behaves consistently under pressure. And with only 3 rounds remaining in the 2025 season, these errors are costing more than points, they're costing confidence. The gap to McLaren and Mercedes is widening. In terms of development, Ferrari has been playing catch-up all year. But in terms of operational sharpness, it is now falling behind. Red Bull adapts on the fly. McLaren upgrades with laser precision. Mercedes has found balance late in the season. Ferrari? Still struggling with tire temperature models and unpredictable rear-end behavior. These are issues they were supposed to have solved in 2023. And Hamilton knows this. Every missed opportunity chips away at what this partnership was supposed to represent. He joined Ferrari to chase greatness, not to relive old frustrations. The agreement between Hamilton and Fred Vasseur was based on trust, that Ferrari would deliver the car and Hamilton would deliver the rest. But in Interlagos, that equation broke. And Vasseur now faces a difficult question: can he deliver a car that lives up to Hamilton's legacy? There is also the bigger picture. 2026 is just around the corner. New regulations. New engines. A fresh start for the entire grid. If Ferrari cannot finish 2025 with momentum, how can they possibly convince Hamilton that they're the best bet to fight for an 8th world title? The other teams are watching. The clock is ticking. And every qualifying like Brazil gives rivals more reason to believe they can steal that crown.